Hey, how's everybody doing? I can barely see anybody because of the lights in the house, but that's kind of fun. I kind of relate to the female character a lot because I do a lot of paleo stuff, and I like sarcasm a lot. So, very rarely do paleontologists get to go to cool places in Maine unless you're looking for like trilobites and stuff like that. But crocodiles are something that luckily we do get to encounter, especially where I work in Montana and Wyoming. So I kind of have become a fan. There's about 23 living species that I've seen a lot of. In fact, we have an exhibit at the museum right now that I got to check another one off of my croc list. I know there's any birders out here? Like bird people are like, oh, I have my bird list. I have a croc list, which is kind of lame, but it's shorter. Like the bird people will be busy for freaking ever. Anyway, so this is a bunch of different crocs. When we talk about crocodilians, we're really talking about sort of large-bodied reptiles that have been around since about the late Cretaceous, about 83 million years ago, arguably a little bit. There's very crocodile-like things actually here in Pennsylvania. Before that, which is pretty neat, phytosaurs and stuff like that. There's a lot of really cool variation. When you look at crocodiles, you get things with really rounded out snouts, you get things with really pointed snouts, but really from the head, from the neck back, they're pretty much the same. You get a little bit of variation in the armor and stuff like that, but this is a plan that this body sort of form has worked out really, really well. I joked a little bit earlier, we were talking about crocodiles eating people and how like people are, like, have anybody heard like a shark people? They're like, oh, sharks don't want to eat people. Yeah, they do. They're hungry. They want to eat people. The people are there. They're like, wow, 3 feet of water. We're both the same place. Crocs are the same way. They've been sort of like ready to eat people for like 83 million years. They're very patient. You know, we weren't there at the same time, but they're very patient. So they're really cool. You can see just based on a lot of the shapes of the skulls, they have different ways of feeding. So the skulls, feeding features are one of the first things to sort of evolve. They evolve very quickly. So you have a lot of these like long-snouted guys over here. And these are really terrific for catching fish and that sort of thing. You can see some of it still in here. By the time you get into a lot of these guys over here, like the caimans and also in the alligators, they're a little bit more general, which is pretty cool. And they'll take things on land. Some of the large crocs, like we have this beautiful skull up here, these guys will come on land, but they tend to attack in shallow water. The coolest things about some of the crocs is just how patient they can be. They are large reptiles, like I said, so they're cold-blooded, and they tend to be able to just sort of wade in real slow and then take something big, and then they don't eat again for a while. So this is one of my favorites, and it's actually the one that was in the movie, and I love how many names there are for this guy. Indo-Pacific crocodile, saltwater crocodile, estuarine crocodile, and salties. Hey, mate, salties. They're awesome. And they're just big. You know, for somebody who studies dinosaurs, I love sort of the bigness of dinosaurs. Not all dinosaurs are big, but the really cool ones are big. So I really enjoy when we get to see some of these really, really large animals. You don't get to see stuff that big anymore. You get to see like elephants, rhinos, those kinds of things. But a crocodile, I think, is like as close to sort of early on dinosaurs, large dinosaurs, as you're going to get, which is pretty cool. So the one in the movie, they kept saying 30 feet long, which is bizarre to me. It's crazy. That's about the size of Deinosuchus, which is known for at least scavenging, but possibly also killing off like tyrannosaurids, so things that are related to T-Rex. How many people would root for a T-Rex in that fight? I think the T-Rex would probably like, I don't even want to be involved in this fight, guys. Just let's feed that a cow. So they're pretty cool. You can see here are some great pictures of some really, really large crocs. These guys are not small animals. This is basically a little bit larger than a cow that we would be used to seeing, like milking cows and stuff like that, like a Guernsey. But these guys are bigger than that. So this guy's a lot bigger than that. This skull is amazing. When you look at the skull and you sort of multiply that back by 8, you've got the length of the croc. So that's a really, really big skull. That's probably about a 4-foot skull, which is really, really big for a croc. Some of the more ancient crocs, we have the Deinosuchus and Sarcosuchus are sort of the most famous. Paul Sereno found Sarcosuchus. Really kind of a neat croc. And there have been larger, but they're not represented with as good fossil. I love this just because this is like as close to the surprised face on dinosaurs as I think you can get. He looks like he just yelled, "Holy smokes," you know. So that's kind of a neat thing, because when you find a crocodile fossil, you really know how that animal behaved. You find dinosaurs and things like that, you have to speculate a lot more. We've never seen dinosaurs in the wild. If you're a birder, you're looking at some of the modern day dinosaurs, since birds are now dinosaurs. So that's pretty cool. You have sort of a great thing to look at and figure out a little bit about behavior. But when you find a fossil crocodile, you pretty much know that this is what it was waiting for all of its life. Here's Sarcosuchus. This is just a cool picture I wanted to include because it's a really, really neat croc, and he's got a weird nose. So Sarcosuchus, like, what's going on here? It's just cool. You kind of expect him to talk like this. I just ate another wildebeest. Wildebeests weren't around when he was around. So these guys are really cool. These guys were in the Tethys Sea, so they were around in Egypt, northern Africa, which is pretty cool. They were eating probably other dinosaurs that were there, including possibly some of the big carnivorous dinosaurs like Spinosaurus. They would have been sort of vying for some of the same resources. Spinosaurus would have been a fish eater. This guy looks like he was probably taking advantage of a lot of fish, but would probably come up on shore to eat stuff too. So that's the skull. It's a little bit cheeky with the human skull. I love that. That's sort of like, just in case you were wondering. There's one that we're familiar with from just seeing it. I love this picture because, again, the length of the skull. And, of course, this was a promotional thing, so they just kind of, but it's still neat. So the range, this is one of my favorites because, again, working up in Montana and Wyoming, we're finding evidence for crocodiles in very, very late Cretaceous rocks, and the range is very different. So if we see this sort of, I think I'm probably in the way for people. You guys can see it here in Florida, up into Georgia, and the Carolinas. This is a really good sort of historic view of where crocs have been in the sort of modern times. If we keep losing our polar ice caps, though, you know, we'll be able to just walk outside and pet a crocodile, which I guess would be the one benefit, because we'd also have nowhere to grow grains because all of the intercontinental seaway. How many people have ever heard of that? So imagine a seaway going from the Gulf of Mexico up into Canada. Shallow seaway, great surfing, except for the crocodiles. That's pretty cool. Now, a lot of people have questions because here in the United States we have both crocodiles and alligators, the American croc and the American alligator. And how do you tell? You know, if you're out in say the swamps in Florida, this is what you could see. So this is really neat. They all have this great eye shine. They're some of the best eye shine from any animals, which is just fun to see. The idea is if you get out here in a canoe and you jump in, all of the stuff that swims away, those are the alligators. Everything that comes after you, those are the crocodiles. Crocodiles in general tend to be very, very aggressive, where alligators kind of hang back and go, well, none of the crocodiles got killed. Let's go back in. So they're a little bit more careful about things. But this is just an incredible picture. I love the eye shine. All right, this is a really, really fun thing. How many people are like doom and gloom? You're like tired of hearing natural scientists go, hey, here's global warming and how we're all screwed, and it's your fault. How many people are tired of hearing that? Yeah, it is true, though, so get over it. Let's fix it. But the cool thing is not all natural history stories are sort of doom and gloom. There's a really interesting comeback story. Crocodiles, alligators in the United States were practically extinct in the 70s. And in that time, people realized that you can farm alligators and crocodiles. Can you imagine that? You know, little bells on their necks, you know, kind of, come on, guys, let's go. All right, no, probably not. So, but the cool thing is you can do it. You can actually raise these crocodiles, alligators, just sort of having your own area for them to be in these sort of swampy environments. And the neat thing is you can let them get as big as you want to have them get. And then you can then kill them, eat them, sell their meat, or sell their leather, which seems pretty gruesome, pretty mean, except that it allows for all the crocodiles and all the alligators that are in the swamps that are wild to actually do what they've been doing for millions and millions of years. And slowly that population has grown. because it's easier to farm them than it is to hunt them. Less and less crocodile and alligator hunting has been done for the leather trade, especially than is in the wilds. The really important thing about these guys is that we heard the word keystone in the movie, and that's true. They are keystone species where they live. And one of the really cool things about that is when we get drought in swampy areas, that's really can be catastrophic in small ways if it lasts a little while, or it can be catastrophic in large ways, but the quickness in which these things bounce back are largely due to crocodiles and alligators and the behavior they have. They dig a hole. So as water goes away, they dig a hole, the water fills up that hole, and they stay in that hole. In that time, deer, raccoons, turtles, frogs, all kinds of things will come to drink or hide in that pool of water. In that time, the crocodiles are they're a little stressed out. They're not eating that much. They might take a deer, they might take whatever, but they're not going to be taking as much as normal. And when the rains finally come back, you basically have these pools filling up again, and you have the animals that are still there. They haven't left to find water. They kind of just bounce back because they had these small pockets of swamp still available to them because of the alligators and crocodiles being there, which is really, really cool. So these are things that we didn't really understand about our ecosystems until we were able to see how it actually worked and how when you have crocodiles, you actually preserve a lot of the other things that live there, which is pretty neat. We always kind of focus in the movies on how many people they can kill, but it's really kind of cool to see what they can do for their ecosystem, which is not what was Maine, which is pretty cool. Or Philadelphia, the sewers in Philadelphia or New York. You ever hear that? Come right up out of the bathroom toilet and get you on the tuchus. It only happened once. Didn't really happen. I was just kidding about that. All right, so questions. If you guys have questions, I'm here to answer questions. Ask the really tough ones, and I'll Google them. I Googled earlier. All right, any questions, guys? Wow, that was easy, Amy. We're done. You don't have to whisper anything from the side. 23 species. Go ahead. It depends on which ones you're looking at. Their 20 feet is really, really, really amazing. 17 feet, when you get to like 17 feet, you're looking at a really, really large animal. In general, though, they don't tend to get past 11 to 12 feet. There's an 11-foot one that you can see in PA if you go upstate to Reptile Land, which is an AZA accredited zoo. They have a 11-footer. But when they got it, they were told, yep, it's at 11 feet. They got there, it wasn't quite 11 feet. So they've had to wait a few years for it to get to 11 feet. And the 11-foot mark is kind of a big deal. So males get there. Males kind of have a weird, they continue to grow, and unless something kills them off, they'll probably continue to grow. Females, they kind of have a rough life. They live about 80 years, and that's all because of the kids. Any moms out there? Blame the kids. All right, so 80 years for a female, and that's basically they are very hardwired to raise their young and kind of protect the nest. So they lay their eggs. They don't really hunt. They just kind of stay by the nest. They keep it covered. They keep things that might try and eat those eggs out. So they're putting in a lot of energy for this nest. And when they finally do hatch, they make this cute little sound, that sound that they had over the side of the boat where they're going like that. If you go to a gator farm and you make that noise right on the edge, you'll get rushed by a big female, and it'll scare the bejesus out of you. It was really cool. And anybody else with you. If you don't tell them you're about to do it, that's even funnier. Don't do that. That's probably mean. But anyway, no, go ahead, do it. I'm so conflicted. Do it. All right. So the cool thing is that they really want to parent their young, and they'll, once they hatch, they take them into their mouth, they take them to a nice shallow pool. The big problem is that the males will actually come in and eat them, so the moms have to be there again. So they're a huge tax on the system. So they're spending a good bit of the year laying the eggs, then protecting them, and then protecting the young until they're big enough to sort of fend for themselves, and they're not really eating well that whole time. So it's just chocolate ice cream and pickles. So that's not true. I made that up. All right. Other questions? That was Florida. Yeah. There's a great sort of I'm not totally sure where, but there's a great farm in St. Augustine that has really large open spaces like that. You can do some cool photography from behind fences, which is a lot safer. So, any other questions? Go ahead. This right here is a saltwater, I believe. Saltwater crocodile is a really fun, true way to tell crocodiles and alligators apart. And actually has a lot to do with this tooth and the nose. So I'm going to see if I can, there's a space right here. And in that space, when this mouth closes, if you see that fourth tooth sort of poking up right there, then it's a crocodile. If you don't see that tooth, if all the teeth are facing down when the mouth is closed, then it's an alligator. The other way is that alligators have two nostrils, right here and here, and crocodiles have one, which is kind of neat, in the skull. So if you're ever wondering, you just have to sneak up on the crocodile or alligator and stick your finger in there and go, that's one, I think it's one. They love that, by the way. All right, any other questions? No? Me. Oh, no, the star of the movie, yeah. Just kidding. The star of the movie was probably a male. The second one that came up looked a little bit smaller, but I was being picky. That's exactly what I watch these movies and I yell at them. You know, I'm like, hey, you said the wrong thing. It's like my dad in football. Only anyway. So I thought that the male was the first one that got caught in the helicopter, and the female was the one that got her head shot off. So, but I think it's just size. So, yep. So males tend to be a little bit more robust. So.
What are your biggest about the
Paleontologist who says she doesn't like to leave the museum. Like, go dig something up. So if you stay in a museum and you're just cleaning off fossils, you're a preparator. So go out, dig something up, write up a paper, rule the world. Besides, that's the best part of being a paleontologist, going out being filthy for 2 months, and then, digging up, coming back with dinosaur bones or turtle bones, whatever you're studying, and then trying to figure out what you've got. So, the fingernails flip me out. That's because even preparators don't have fingernails that nice. Because we're chipping away at rock. It's pretty funny. Most preparators really want to see what the fossil looks like, so fingernails, teeth, whatever, to get down to what the fossil is, we'll get in there. So it's pretty cool. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I loved her character. She was brilliant. She played that so well. But I feel like they were like, we want you to do this. Don't do any research about what a paleontologist actually does, though, because it'll mess you up. All right? So she was probably my biggest pet peeve, but yeah. And I feel like everything that I would normally get sarcastic about, they beat me to it. So like the whole, they don't swim in water, that could be your little secret. Yeah, they beat me to it. So it's a brilliant movie. It's really fun. So just ate a cow. Yeah, there you go. They don't hunt when they're not hungry. So it's kind of fun, unless there's hippos around. They really hate hippos, and hippos hate them. It's kind of like, a really cool kind of gang war thing going on. Like, it's not our fault, but it's really fun to watch. All right. Other questions? Glad you guys are laughing, because this is like the most strange presentation. Usually we do presentations during the films, and they're really ruckus, and they get pretty rough, but this has been more fun. I think that this is fun. It's awesome. All right. Other questions? No? You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Cool. Remember the tip jar no, I'm just kidding. All right, here you go.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And once again, don't forget to come out next week. Tuesday is The Host, and then May 22nd for Clash of the Titans, both here at the Prince Theater. So yeah, thank you again, Jason Poole, for coming out, and thanks, everybody.